I just texted. My son is in the emergency room. Mom replied, we're busy with Margaret. Then she insulted my son, and I decided to stop paying their mortgage, car loan, and all their credit cards. I stood in the hallway of the house I grew up in, looking at the pictures on the wall, my sister's graduation, her wedding, her first baby. In every photo, my parents looked proud. My own achievements weren't in any of them. I felt the familiar tightness in my stomach. After 35 years, I should have been used to it. From the kitchen, I heard my mom calling, Julia, is that you? Come help me with the dishes. I stopped. I didn't come here to help with dishes. I came to set boundaries. I went into the kitchen and saw her setting up food for Margaret's celebration. Margaret had just been promoted at work, thanks to Dad's connections. Can you finish this while I get ready? She said, already wiping her hands on a towel. Your dad got the wrong crackers. Margaret likes sesame, not plain. I nodded and took over. Same thing, different day. My phone buzzed. It was Sharon, my ex-sister-in-law. Did you tell them yet? I hadn't. How do you tell your parents you're cutting them off after years of supporting them? How do you explain that their only grandson didn't even include them in a school assignment about family? The front door slammed, and Dad's heavy steps approached. Julia, he said, barely looking at me, where's your mom? Margaret will be here soon. She's getting ready, I said. He nodded and disappeared into the living room without saying anything more. I quietly finished setting up the crackers, thinking about all the times I'd stood in this kitchen, hoping for their approval. My scholarship to UCLA, my promotion, the birth of my son, none of it had ever been enough. They always focused on Margaret, their miracle child. I was just the practice run. I spent my whole life trying to get what she got so easily: attention, pride, their love. When Randy left me for someone else, I thought my parents would finally help. I was suddenly a single mom, but instead of support, they blamed me. They questioned whether I'd been a good wife, if I focused too much on my career. But Randy's parents, who weren't even my in-laws anymore, were the ones who stepped up. They helped with Mark, took him for weekends, and showed him love. My own parents barely noticed. Then, 6 months ago, things changed. They started calling every week to ask about Mark, inviting us to dinner, offering to babysit. I wanted to believe they finally cared, but when Margaret's promotion happened, I realized the truth: they just needed money. Mom came back into the kitchen, now wearing a blouse I'd bought for her. Did you finish the appetizers? Margaret will be here soon. I nodded and slid the tray toward her. We need to talk. Her face went from happy to nervous. About what? Can it wait until after the event? No, I said. I'm stopping all financial support. Her face went pale. What financial support? She asked, acting like she didn't know, even though I had been paying for their car loan, house repairs, vacations, everything. I pressed my hands against the counter, trying to stay calm. The car loan, the credit cards, the house insurance, everything. She stared at me, shocked. Why would you do that after all we've done for you? I couldn't help it. I laughed bitterly. Oh, what exactly have you done for me? We raised you. We made sure you had food to eat. That's the bare minimum, I snapped. When Randy left, who actually helped me? When Mark needed to go to the doctor, who stepped in? When I got promoted, who even noticed? Not you. Never you. Dad came into the room, looking confused. What's going on? Mom turned to him, her voice getting louder. Julia says she's cutting us off after everything we've done for her. Dad's face darkened. Is this about that? We already explained. It's about everything, I said, my voice shaking with frustration. It's about Mark calling Sharon grandma because she actually treats him like one. It's about you skipping his birthday to go on Margaret's trip. It's about me needing surgery and you refusing to pick up your own grandson because Margaret had a dinner to go to. I remembered that night. I'd been rushed to the emergency room for appendicitis. I was in so much pain. All I could think about was Mark, alone at after-school care. I called my parents, but they were at Margaret's dinner. Can't Randy pick him up? Mom had said, annoyed. I could barely explain that Randy wasn't even in town. We can't leave now. Margaret would be upset, Mom said, and then, he's just so much work. Sometimes he's a burden. My own child, a burden. But Sharon had dropped everything. She picked up Mark and stayed with me at the hospital. That was when I realized the difference between obligation and love, between family and true family. Dad spoke again. You're overreacting. We couldn't leave Margaret's dinner. You know how important it was to her. More important than their grandson? More important than me going into surgery? I'm done, I said, my voice firm. No more money, no more pretending. You don't get to use me when it's convenient and ignore me when it's not. Mom's face crumpled, not with guilt, but with calculation. The car payment's due soon, and your father's medication. Margaret's new salary could cover it. Or they could finally use their retirement savings, which they'd been saving while I paid for everything else. It's not my problem anymore. At that moment, Margaret's voice called from the front door. Mom, Dad, I brought champagne. It was time for me to leave. I grabbed my purse from the counter. Julia, wait, my mom's voice was desperate. You can't do this to us. But I could, and I was. I walked past Margaret in the hallway. She looked confused. Julia, I didn't know you were coming to my celebration. I wasn't, I said. I came to take back the last bit of care I had for people who never really saw me. Congrats on your promotion, I said, trying to sound sincere. Margaret's success wasn't the issue, it was how our parents always ignored both of us. Margaret looked unsure for a moment. Thanks, are you leaving already? I nodded quickly, not trusting myself to speak. Let them figure things out. Let them face the consequences of their actions. The drive home felt like a dream. Tears filled my eyes, but they weren't from sadness, they were from relief. The heavy burden of trying to earn love from people who should have given it unconditionally had finally lifted. Mark was at Sharon's house. My ex-mother-in-law had sent me pictures, Mark covered in flour, smiling, completely happy, real love, no strings attached. Family isn't about blood, it's about the people who stay and make you feel accepted. 3 months passed with no calls, no messages, just silence. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, my phone lit up with a call from my mom. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won out, and I answered. Julia, she said, sounding stiff, we need to talk about this situation. The situation? I repeated. Financial struggles, she said, without my help. Nothing to discuss. There was silence, then her voice turned bitter. Margaret won't help us. She says we need to learn to manage our money. The car got taken away yesterday, and the mortgage is 2 months behind. Not my problem anymore. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, though a part of me still felt sorry for them, as if it was my responsibility to make sure they were okay. You can't just leave us like this, we're your parents. Blood doesn't equal emotional support, I said, they never truly played the role of parents. I have to go, Mark has soccer practice. Julia, don't. I hung up and blocked her number. Across the kitchen, Mark was working on his school project, a family tree. How's it going, kiddo? I asked, leaning in. At the top, he had drawn Sharon and Brian, labeling them Grandma and Grandpa. Below them were Mom and Dad, under my name and Randy's. At the bottom, himself. No Margaret, no my parents. Is this everyone in our family? I asked gently. He nodded, completely sure. These are the ones who love us. Simple, honest, true. Later that night, after Mark fell asleep, I sat on the back porch with a glass of wine. A cool breeze touched my skin as I thought about inheritance, not money, but emotional inheritance, the beliefs passed down about love, worth, and family. My parents had their own scars, believing love had to be earned and that children owed something to their parents. But cycles don't have to keep repeating, we can change them. Mark would inherit something different from me, the truth that love isn't a trade, that family is about choice, and that the most important thing is just being there. My phone buzzed with a message from Sharon. Brian's making his famous chili this Sunday. You and Mark coming? I smiled as I typed back. Wouldn't miss it. This was my legacy now, not guilt, not duty, but choice, connection, love, freely given and fully received. For the first time in my life, I felt abundant in the things that truly matter. Looking back, I could finally see the pattern clearly, my constant struggle for approval, my desperate desire to be noticed. My worth had always been tied to their approval, or the lack of it. Every milestone, every achievement had been a silent plea, see me, care about me. The walls of my childhood room had been covered in certificates, trophies, awards, all collecting dust, while my parents cheered for Margaret at her games and performances. When I got a full scholarship to UCLA, Dad barely reacted. California's too far, who's going to help your mother? Not Margaret, never Margaret, she was too busy being the center of their world. I went anyway. I worked through school, built a career, and reached a point where I didn't need help from anyone. Then I met Randy, charming, confident Randy, who made me feel like the most important person in the room. His family accepted me right away, they made me feel heard and valued. Sharon called just to check in. Brian showed me how to change the oil in my car. It was so different, this easy acceptance. When we got married, my parents complained about everything, the venue, the date, the menu. Margaret, my maid of honor, looked bored during the ceremony. My parents left early because Margaret had an appointment the next morning. Randy's parents stayed until the end, helped clean up, and treated me like I was always part of their family. When Mark was born, things should have been different. He was their first grandchild, but they visited once, briefly. Mom held him awkwardly before handing him back. He looks like Randy, she said, like that explained everything. Sharon and Brian, though, were different. They brought us food, helped with Mark when I needed a break, and treated me like I mattered. Then Randy left. A text message, no face-to-face conversation. Sharon found me crying on the bathroom floor. Sharon packed a bag for Mark, took us both in, and stayed with me while I tried to figure out my broken marriage. My parents? One phone call. Mom's tone had been almost satisfied. Men don't appreciate women who focus on their careers. I warned you, as if my ambition had been the problem, like I deserved to be left behind. The way Randy fought for money but didn't care about custody was harsh. He wanted freedom without responsibility. Sharon and Brian were stuck in the middle, torn between loving their son and being disappointed by his choices. You're still family, Brian had said, firm and certain. That doesn't change. Mark is our grandson, and you're his mom. It's simple. Simple for them, but not for my parents. Eventually, as legal bills piled up and being a single mom with a full-time job became too much, I turned to my parents for help, just temporarily, just until things got better. My dad grudgingly wrote me a check. It's small, don't expect this often, we're not a bank. But when their car broke down the next month, they asked me for help right away. Can you cover this? Just this once, until we're back on track. That one time turned into many. They kept asking for more, and I kept giving. I held on to a foolish hope that if I just gave enough, maybe they'd finally care about me like they cared about Margaret. It was pathetic, transparent, desperate. But I couldn't stop, not until I finally realized the truth. It had never been love, it had been an exchange, and my financial help had just been buying their temporary attention, not their affection, not their real care. That realization hurt, but in that pain, I found freedom. I didn't need to prove I deserved love anymore. I already had it, from Mark, from Sharon and Brian, from friends who cared, from people who respected me. I had found a family of my own, not the one I was born into. 1 week after leaving my parents' house, my phone rang. It was Margaret, rare, because we didn't talk much, maybe twice a year. Our conversations were polite but distant. What did you say to Mom and Dad? She asked, her voice sharp. They're falling apart over money. I kept it simple. No more financial help. They have their favorite now. She can help. There was a long silence. They think you're being cruel, that you're getting revenge for the past. But was it cruel to stop draining myself for them? Was it revenge to hold them accountable for years of neglect? I'm not punishing anyone, I said. I'm just done pretending. Margaret sighed, a sound full of weariness. They're never going to change. You know, they've always been like this. It was the first time she admitted the truth, a rare moment of understanding. She had always been the favorite, and I had always been left behind. I know they won't change, I said, but I have. There was a pause. Good for you. Those simple words were perhaps the most genuine thing she had said to me in years. After we hung up, I thought about Margaret. Did being the favorite child come with its own struggles? Maybe. She had her reasons for pushing me away, just like I had mine. We had both been forced into roles we didn't choose. Months later, after cutting off financial ties, I was finally understanding what true freedom was, not just being free from obligation, but from the need for approval from people who couldn't give it. My worth was never about their recognition. I had always been enough, they just failed to see it. Mark ran into the kitchen, snapping me out of my thoughts. Mom, Grandma Sharon says she's making spaghetti tonight. Can we go? Grandma Sharon, a title earned through love, not blood, through care, through countless small acts of kindness. Of course, buddy, grab your shoes. As he raced to the door, I felt a deep appreciation for this strong, bright child, for the family we had built, based on choice, not obligation, for the wisdom that hardship had taught me. Sometimes, the best lessons come not from what we inherit, but from what we learn through pain, from breaking cycles, from trying to do better. My parents had taught me exactly what kind of mother and person I would never become, and for that, I was strangely grateful. As I drove to Sharon and Brian's house with Mark chatting excitedly beside me, I felt something shift inside. The journey from needing approval to finding peace, from seeking validation in others to finding it in myself, it was complete. The weight of family expectations, emotional debts, old patterns, they had been too much to carry, but now, I had let them go, and what remained? Something lighter, purer, all mine. Family, love, belonging, not transactions, not obligations, not desperate attempts to prove my worth, but choice, intentional, grounded in the quiet certainty that, finally, I was exactly where I was meant to be.